going on, everybody, and welcome to week 2 of the Boss GT-1000CORE video. I am once again joined by Jeff Slingluff. He is the Roland and Boss Guitar Products Manager. Jeff, how you doing?
I am doing amazing, Doug. It's great to see you here again this week.
Always a pleasure. All right. So as promised, this week what we're doing is we're going through some of the go-to sounds that we think you're going to want to know about. And that first demo is actually really kind of a great example of one of the things that starts to happen when you get inside this box, is that that little acoustic sim thing was this one little part that I came up with. Then I added the octave kind of for the acoustic sim bass. And then I was sending Jeff the clip, and all of a sudden I started jamming over it. I was like, oh, snap. I got to record this, right?
Yeah, it's like you had all these individual elements that you wanted to show off, and then all of a sudden they just kind of all happened together, right? And it was just beautiful. So, and what a great take and a great chance to see you play again.
With pleasure. Let me actually roll the lead tone clip on its own so you can hear the tone where that came from, because it's really kind of where it started is completely different than what you just heard. Let's take a listen. So what I love about that is the same sound that we heard at the top there, but it's way more mellowed out. All I'm doing is approaching it a little bit different. So Jeff, we were talking about kind of what was happening sonically speaking there. First of all, That guy right there, I've got the octave pedal, and that's in poly mode. One of the things that I love that you guys have got going now is that the new octave pedals are polyphonic. That's a big deal, yeah?
Yeah, it's an amazing deal because you can play full chords, right? They track amazingly fast, right? And you can go from a classic OC2 type sound to a polyphonic sound, and it's just really great that you were actually using it in that sense, right? And getting it both, because on the track you got a really good Prince type sound, and then slipped into a really good Joe Satriani kind of sound, right? And it tracked all along, did everything that was broken that we love about it, and everything nice about it that we love about it.
Right on the money. And speaking of the other groovy stuff that was going on, that is one of your own amps. So as you kind of look down the list there, anything that says X marks the spot. What I love about this is that I've had every bit as much fun with your guys. First of all, X compressors, X amplifiers. So X marks the spot, right? Those are the things that are telltale signs that it's Boss stuff, correct?
Yeah, and what it is it's basically where the engineers get to take, not just a classic Plexi sound or not just a classic thing. They get to kind of spice it up and do all those things you'd want to mod to it and want to make good characters out of it. So they start from a good core, and they're just a lot of extra fun going on inside of there in the way that we think you'd want, because we want it that way.
I love it. Next clip.
So there's really no question what type of amp that is, right? You can hear it instantly, and you play the right riffs for it. Excellent job, right?
So Deluxe Reverb, in case you didn't know, and this is one of the things that we've had fun with, as I've been texting clips back and forth with Jeff, like, what amp is that? So the Deluxe Reverb, it's a pair of 6v6s. It's got a particular sound. The other thing that I really love about what you guys have done is a Fender Reverb has this little ping that happens when you hit the note, it goes in there. And my favorite thing about that clip, at the end, I'm kind of doing that strummy thing, and it's getting louder and it's getting more dynamically rich. You guys have just done a fabulous job on kind of creating that harmonic and dynamic expansion. It's just awesome. Really, really great job.
And I think I get its good sense, even just as a listener, when I listen to you play it, of the dynamics that are going on inside of that. And I hope that, not only am I hearing that, but hopefully you as the player were feeling it on the other side, because that's kind of the core behind, the GT product.
The core. Next clip, we got another classic sound coming at you. So here we go. right. So the thing about that was so funny was like, I pulled up the model. I'm like, "Our Diamond, what is that?" And it wasn't until I kind of popped open the manual. And by the way, thank you for actually saying what amp it was. I was like, "Oh, AC30," because I thought at first, "Oh, Diamond, it must be like a tread plate Mesa." So I cranked everything up. And then once I was like, "Oh, it's the Diamond, that's the Vox. Well, let me try and do the Brian May thing." And, basically I've worn down the edge of my fingernail here, but it got so crazy close, dude.
Yeah, well, because first off, amazing playing, because one of the things Brian May does is definitely the dime. He uses the 10 pence to play, and it pulls out all those extra harmonics. You can totally hear it. Like halfway through that, you hit this beautiful harmonic. It goes off. Nice job, right? And number two, it just really is such a classic sound, and you just totally nailed it. So that was cool.
The other secret sauce before we move on to the next clip is and we had this longer conversation about whether it was the amps and whether it was the comb filtering because of how they were mic'd. But what I did was I pulled up a phaser, but I took basically the speed of the phaser and set it to 0. So you got the sound of the phase, because if you listen to the original track, it's got that vibe in there. So what I loved about it is I just kind of got in and tweaked with that, and with just a minimal amount of tweaking, and boom, it was there. Gotta love that.
Yeah, you really nailed it with that. And there's different ways to get that, but you can clearly hear, all of Brian May's stuff, that there's a little bit of phase thing, and there's multiple ways that it could be coming in, but adding that phaser in there, you just totally nailed it in that sound of that track.
Next clip, another classic sound. Let's take a listen. Way too much fun. Jeff, tell us about the Marshall that's in there. That's the 1959, right?
Yeah. So I think that the sound that you're using, right, and I'm not sure which model they use, but in Japan, in the office, there's one, a whole room full of all kinds of classic amps there, but there's this one 1959 Marshall that's labeled JCM 800. So it's like from mid 80s, but it's a plexi, does it, non-master volume. And I always gravitate to that amp, and I always love it. And I think that's the one in there because I gravitate to it as well. And I hear you play that Jimmy Page-ish riff there, and I'm like, he's nailed it, right? You just totally nailed it. And, for me, I mean, we just listened to you pull off an acoustic sound. We've listened to you pull off a really cool solo sound, a deluxe, a Vox, a plexi, right there, that's meat and potatoes, man. If you're a chef and you can't cook in the kitchen with those things, then you're dead in the water. And I think if I'm not mistaken, you actually did the bass part on that as well.
So, and the bass part, actually, I actually initially thought I was playing the amping, but it's actually one of your native bass sounds, which sounded great, because on Heartbreaker, John Paul Jones has got this kind of strange kind of vibrato chorus sort of sound. But, honestly, in some ways, it's almost harder to pull off John Paul Jones than it is Jimmy Page, because Jimmy Page, we're so used to kind of the Page-isms, but John Paul Jones is the sleeping giant in Led Zeppelin. Now, I do want to pull out a little something here, because it's next week, right? We're going to be building some week 4, we're going to build some wild, crazy rigs. But basically, this is the ES8. So the reason I pulled that up here, because it's here and I'm going to start crafting some rigs, is everything that you've heard is literally just this box straight into Pro Tools. And that was one of the conversations that Jeff and I had, is just like, because, Jeff, you use it in these kind of, you're like, all right, let me hook it up with the 20 cable method and 5 amps and 4 switchers and MIDI and all of that. This is all just straight into Pro Tools. Dude, that's nuts.
Yeah, as you've been sending me these demos over last week and this week, and it's like you keep selling me on my own product, right? I keep hearing you go, I'm like, well, why do I have all this other stuff connected? Why don't I just do what Doug's doing, because he's nailing it, and maybe it's the guitar playing that helps a lot, but in general, you've been able to eke out all these just really amazing sounds, last week and this week, and it's just really a pleasure to hear.
Thank you, humbly. The interesting thing is like I'm one of the guys that was a Guitar Hero session guy. I got paid to be a parent, right? You do it long enough, you get good at being a parrot. You know, you say hello, and the parrot says hello. You know, so the point being is that and I use, as I mentioned, I think in the first video, I use the GT8 on the Guitar Hero stuff amongst some other stuff, and so I know this gear inside and out. All right. That said, we're going to dial up another classic sound. So let's do that, and here we go. So Jeff, one of the things that I love about what we've been doing is I've been sending you these clips. Once again, what amp was that?
That was a Tweed, my friend, right? And so it was a lovely version of it because you could hear the way it responded. It gets kind of spongy in the low end, the way it's supposed to. You could hear your dynamics and the way you're reacting to it. It was awesome.
All right. So in week 3, just to clarify, we're going to be building some pedal board action here, basically incorporating stuff with the ES8. We may also just kind of do some standalone stuff where we use 1 or 2 other pedals with the GT-1000CORE. But next week is going to be focused around the pedal board side of things. One of the other things we would love it if you could do is, if you're on YouTube, drop some questions down below. Please, we want this to be interactive. We can't answer all the questions, but I've been down answering the questions that people have been leaving, and they've been great. One of the questions, Jeff, that somebody had was, why is there only one reverb block, and is that something that's going to change?
Okay, so one of the big things about the GT-1000's mentality and kind of where it's based at is that all of the blocks that you see inside of it, when Doug pulled up that screen, every single block is always on. You're not deleting one and putting a new one in. They're always on. So instead of trying to running into a message that says you're out of memory, it's like, if I could only have one more. If you can see it, you can turn it on. There is a dual reverb inside of there. There's also a dual delay and a delay plus reverb. But there won't be any more reverbs added because all the DSP and engine is already being used. But that's why you also see things like there's 5 delays inside of there. One which can do all these special high-end delays, and then 4 others which are a little more simplified that you can squeeze in everywhere. But yeah, I don't expect to see any increase of DSP because we try to maximize it. But with that, you get the ability to do 24 simultaneous effects that are always on, and it makes it for super fast switching because you're just muting them in and out is what's happening. And and those there's 4 parallel paths that can be routed in any direction, and they're all there. They're not being destroyed in between preset changes, and so I don't expect any more additional reverbs as far as running 2 at once. Maybe additional algorithms in the future because we're going to keep updating it, but for now, I wouldn't expect any additional blocks.
All right, awesome. Well, first of all, want to thank everybody out there for watching. I will once again ask if you haven't already subscribed to the channel so we can let you know when the next video in the series is going to go online, which will be next week. So, either way, just come back. But we want to thank you again for checking this out. This has been a lot of fun. Everybody that's kind of started watching the series, I've so appreciated your great comments and questions. Everybody has been so overwhelmingly positive, and that is not always the case on YouTube. So thank you, thank you, Jeff. Really appreciate your making the time. Always a gas. Thank you again.
Thank you, Doug. It's a lot of fun doing this, and we look forward to seeing everybody else next week.
See you next week. Cheers.